Hello and welcome to the show on a gorgeous fall day in South Bend, Indiana. Glad to have you with us here today. I'm Sean Stiers. Trevor Trowbridge is with me once again today here in the first hour. We're going to hear a lot of comments from Marcus Freeman from his noon Zoom media call that he had earlier today. That's a little bit of a tongue twister there, but we'll hear a lot from him. Bobby Hensley is going to join us in the second hour and see what he can do to wreck this show once again as we do some rapid fire with Trevor. I can always count on Trevor to stay on course, though. Stay locked in. He is always focused. How are you today, Trevor?
I'm good, man. It's fall weather's finally here. Made some soup yesterday because it's,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, man. Made some creamy tortellini and sausage soup.
Ooh.
And
homemade?
Oh yeah. It's just one of those where it's like you can't make it when it's 85 degrees outside.
Well, that's very true. That's my wife. We don't really do homemade soups. My wife and my daughter both really love tomato soup, but they usually will go out and buy it someplace rather than try to make that at home. But the one thing that we like to make at home once the weather starts getting like this is a nice big pot of chili is what we'll do. So that's the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love that.
Delicious. All right. Well, again, we've got a lot to get to in the course of today's show. And don't forget, you can watch this show live on YouTube, whether it's the Irish Breakdown YouTube channel or the Sports Radio WSBT YouTube channel. And when you watch it that way, you can join the conversation by commenting in the live YouTube chat, just like Joe Allen did. He's asking, Joe coming into town from Omaha this weekend, asking if the parking is still free on campus before Friday home games. And the answer is absolutely yes. You can park anywhere out there as long as you can find a spot. I don't believe we've got hockey to worry about Friday night. Don't hold me to that. Let me double check here in just a second. But in either case, because like even for basketball, men's or women's basketball, for hockey, all that stuff, there's no parking for either one of those. And just like I thought, hockey is away this weekend. They will have a game tomorrow night, 10 o'clock tomorrow night at Mullet Arena in the 2025 Icebreaker Tournament. They're playing Arizona State tomorrow night, and then they'll have another game Saturday night as well at 6 o'clock. So no hockey. So the parking lot will be what it is, free to roam around campus and do what you need to do. So before we hear some of Marcus Freeman's comments, first of all, did you see that Kyle Hamilton and Alohi Gilman have been reunited in Baltimore after the Chargers traded Gilman to the Ravens?
I did see that little bit of a remix of the 2019 season. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's right. Alohi and Kyle Hamilton. Alohi Gilman has put together a pretty sneaky, pretty good career so far. I mean, he hasn't been Kyle Hamilton, obviously, or Harrison Smith, but he has played very well, very steady, and the Ravens are a team in dire need of some defensive help right now after being shredded by C.J. Stroud and the Texans last weekend and the record that they've got, especially considering Lamar Jackson is out. So pretty cool to see Kyle Hamilton and Alohi Gilman back together out there with the Ravens.
Oh, I think so too.
So probably the biggest news didn't necessarily come out of the Zoom call with Marcus Freeman today, but Notre Dame, they put out their injury report on Mondays when right before Marcus Freeman holds his press conferences. And then on Thursdays, they put out an updated injury report. He doesn't really talk about the injuries, but per the injury report, Jaden Greathouse and Devontae Smith are both unfortunately going to be out this weekend when the Irish play North Carolina State. A couple of I mean, Greathouse is someone who obviously we expected a lot of significance from. Haven't necessarily seen it on the field, but still obviously a really good player and a really good presence out there. Devontae Smith, just in terms of pure impact, especially considering what we saw from him last weekend when the full secondary was healthy. That's a pretty considerable loss that Notre Dame will have going into this game against the Wolfpack, Trevor.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, the on-the-field impact for Greathouse, that stinks to see, but we're talking about somebody who has, 4 receptions on the season or something crazy?
Yeah. Yep.
So
4
that
for what, like 73? Yeah, 73 yards. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully his hamstring heals up quickly and Notre Dame gets him back here soon. But you're right, Devontae Smith at nickel, they're going to be missing him, especially with this NC State offense. Now they'll be relying on once again, we're having to see true freshmen in Notre Dame secondary have to grow up in a hurry. So hopefully Dallas Golden's going to be prepped and ready to go for this NC State offense.
Yeah, and at the very least at this point, Dallas Golden has some experience because he had to get back in there last week, and he played before that as well a couple of games ago against Purdue. So he's been in there, and he's looked pretty good. I mean, he hasn't played at the level as Devontae Smith, but you don't expect that he would because you're talking about a 5-year veteran versus a true freshman, as talented as he is. But I think the experience that he has gained so far should be really important for him getting back in there once again this Saturday. Someone was asking, why don't we know the Greathouse injury? According to the injury report, I'll read you the out for the game injury report. Will Black with a concussion, obviously a reserve offensive lineman. Jaden Greathouse, right thigh is what it says. Devontae Smith is right calf. They list Charles Jagasaw on there with left arm, and then Peter Jones also left ankle. Those are the 5 guys who were listed as officially out for the game, and the 2 guys who are questionable for this game are kicker Noah Burnette with a right hip and tight end Cooper Flanagan with a left Achilles injury. And we talked about Flanagan earlier this week as he made his way onto the injury report for the first time since that Achilles tear in the Sugar Bowl. I would be very shocked if we actually see him out there Saturday, but it sounds like he's going to be getting back there on the field sometime soon.
Yeah, I was up in the press box Saturday against Boise State, and he was going through warmups. It was cool to see. At least I thought it was him. He's 87, isn't he?
Oh, now you're testing me on a guy who hasn't played the field so far.
I think he's number 87
so far this year. I know he's an 80-something. 87 sounds right. Let me check my roster here. Yes, 87. Cooper Flanagan, rather.
Yeah, I did see him running around in warmups, so that was promising to see. It's just one of those where you like to see him in the questionable side of the injury report. Hopefully, he's able to come back. But with something like an Achilles, with how Notre Dame's offense has been playing the last couple of games, don't force it. Don't come back earlier than what you need to. But can't wait to see him back out there.
Right, exactly. Michael in the YouTube chat says that it was being reported earlier this week that it was a hamstring for Greathouse. It very well may have been. I'm just telling you, Notre Dame's official injury report, the injuries that I just read came straight from Notre Dame's official injury report that they released today. And again, under out for the game, number 1, wide receiver, Jaden Greathouse, right thigh. That's verbatim what it says about Jaden Greathouse. So I'm just telling you what it says. So may be different, but that's what they have officially. So there it is.
Come on.
All right. I know, right? Just stirring up controversy everywhere I go. So Noah Burnette, he is still listed as questionable. He was listed as questionable earlier this week. And so, again, while the question was not specifically about Burnett's injury, the first question that Marcus Freeman fielded today was about the kicking competition in terms of maybe Eric Schmidt or Marcello Diomede if Noah Burnette was going to be out and how that has shaped up. So here's what Marcus Freeman said about who's going to be the place kicker this Saturday.
Yeah, right now Noah will be ready to go. He'll kick today, and we plan on Noah being our kicker And if he's not, then probably go Eric right now. We already plan on Eric probably being a longer distance, depending on where Noah's line would be. But Noah will be our kicker.
Okay, so Noah Burnette, they're planning on being the place kicker. Oops, planning on being the place kicker, and Eric Schmidt. He said Eric Schmidt, of course, the true freshman, big leg, mostly a punter in high school, so a little bit more erratic, not quite as refined, with his kicking mechanics and those kind of things. But he would be the longer distance guy. What's your concern level with the kicking situation going into this game?
I mean, again, it just stems from last season of I don't know what it is. They got to get it figured out of why these kickers continue to get hurt. That's step one. But for this game specifically, look, if he's not cleared to come back and is not super comfortable kicking from distance, Eric Schmidt can come in and hit extra points. We've watched him do it. I would rather see Noah Burnette get fully healthy than him trot out and then re-injure something before USC, and then you get into the bye week. That's my take on it. Eric Schmidt's more than capable of hitting PATs. If you're comfortable letting him be your kicker from distance, he can be your extra point kicker as well.
It feels like it, even though he obviously had an extra point blocked last year. He did make other extra points, but he did have it blocked. I just wonder what Diomede looks like, because it feels like, again, like if the guy, like if you're a kicker, feels like he should be able to handle extra points and some of the shorter stuff, unless he's just very erratic, and that is a big concern. And that, because then like you could just, again, go back for the longer kicks to Eric Schmidt. But I kind of agree with what you're saying. Like you would think that if you can handle the long stuff, you can handle the short stuff, but maybe he's still Schmidt getting comfortable with handling all those duties. And he's just more comfortable kind of letting it rip from a longer range. Because, I mean, the last thing you want in like if the game were to be close, would be a kicker to spray an extra point or two, or have one blocked again and run back the other way, that kind of thing. But
no, that's very fair.
It is fairly concerning to me, though, that we've talked about this before, the fact that 2 years in a row you've had kickers with injured hips and trying to get that figured out, and just the fact that you kind of don't know what you've got, or maybe they know what they've got, but we don't know exactly what they've got behind them in terms of real consistency. So maybe the fact that the plan is what it is kind of tells us how they feel about it, I guess. So the opponent is NC State, and we've touched a little bit this week on some of the offensive challenges, or the challenges to Notre Dame's defense NC State's offense will provide. And Marcus Freeman talked a little bit today about dealing with 6'6" quarterback CJ Bailey, as well as running back Hollywood Smothers.
Yeah, I mean, you said what I see on film, right? The length and of the quarterback and his ability to throw it and spread it out. I know the tight ends has the most receptions, but he does a good job of spreading the ball and making good decisions. And Smothers is a real problem. He's a challenge. He is really good. He's got great contact balance. He makes you miss. Really good spin move. And so we have to continue to pursue to the ball. Like you can't. There's going to be missed tackles in any game. There's missed tackles, but we have to make sure that we're game tackling Smothers. That we're relentlessly pursuing the football, and we're physical when we get there, and we're taking good and proper angles. And with Bailey, you got to try to make him uncomfortable with pre-snap reads. You got to try to get pressure on him, and you can't let him escape vertically. Right? You can't let him escape through the B gap and run vertically to extend plays as a passer.
Really, the interesting thing to me about CJ Bailey is, even though he does have mobility, it is more what Marcus Freeman, I think, was talking about, Trevor. It's more about extending plays than it is taking off and running. He's got 40 attempts, but he's only gained 78 yards. Now, 9 of the attempts are sacks. He hasn't been sacked a ton, but they also, like when you look at the level of competition that they've played, it's not like they've played some teams for the most part outside of the ACC games that they played that you would expect them to protect the quarterback very well. So what do you think Notre Dame's defensive approach looks like this Saturday against those guys.
There's a lot of similarities with this offense and what Arkansas did on offense. A lot of similarities with the quarterbacks. Taylon Green was 6'6", 235. CJ Bailey 6'6", 215. And so I think Taylon Green is more of a skilled runner than what CJ Bailey is, but I think CJ Bailey is a better passer from the pocket. And so there's a misconception with him. He's not a dual threat quarterback. I talk about him in the same light that I talk about Kenny Minchey. Kenny Minchey does his best work from the pocket, and so does CJ Bailey. So that's the risk with a quarterback like him.
Yeah, see, like when I look at it, I completely agree with what you're saying. Like, to me, like, don't get mistaken about this comparison, because I am talking about specifically about his ability to extend plays. Like, it's more Caleb Williams. Like, Caleb Williams, he could, good athlete, fairly fast, he could take off and run. To me, what the aspect of Caleb Williams' game when he was at USC with his legs that made him dangerous was just the ability to extend plays, to move in and out of the pocket, to do things, keep his eyes downfield, and make plays that way rather than taking off and running like a Taylon Green, busting those 50-yard big explosive runs and stuff like that. So, I mean, you do have to be concerned about him. I think the biggest thing with him, and this is similar to Taylon Green again, is that if you give him time just to sit there in the pocket, he will pick you apart. He's completing 74% of his passes. He's an even more accurate quarterback than Taylon Green. So from Notre Dame's perspective, they have to be disruptive up front. I don't think NC State's offensive line, not that Arkansas's offensive line was great. I don't, like when I look at the bodies and the way they play, I don't think that NC State's offensive line is probably, maybe comparable to Arkansas. The bodies, though, are a little bit smaller, but just physicality and getting after it, breaking that pocket down, like, to me, those are two of the bigger keys, I think, against Daniels.
Yeah, I agree.
Bailey, rather. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I knew what you meant, man. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think that NC State's offensive line, they don't have Fernando Carmona on it. They don't have an Inez Cooper, a Francis Maui Noah, Trey Zune, and Armaj Reed Adams, some of the other offensive linemen that Notre Dame has faced. They just have a bunch of guys that just kind of do their job. And you know how sometimes on the show we talk about, hey, if Notre Dame's offensive line could just do their job, nobody has to look like Joe Alt, nobody has to look like Ronnie Stanley.
Right.
Just do your job. That's kind of what NC State's offensive line has done. I mean, their left tackle's only given up 4 pressures all season. Jacarius Peak. Now, he's not a Joe Alt. He's not a Ronnie Stanley. He's not a Francis Maui Noah, but he is a quality offensive lineman. That's who Notre Dame's going to be going up against this weekend. So I agree with where you're coming from.
What about Hollywood Smothers? This is a guy who has had 4 games already this year where he's had at least 123 rushing yards. He had 164 against Wake Forest. He's averaging almost 7 yards per carry. He can catch the ball a little bit coming out of the backfield too. Like, I don't know. Notre Dame, again, Notre Dame has done pretty well against the run this season. I will say this is probably the best running back, at least since Miami that they faced. I mean, Le'Veon Moss, pretty good, at least from a numbers standpoint. This guy is a little bit shiftier and quicker. What do you think?
Yeah, from an overall effectiveness, like being a complete running back, I would say so. Like Mark Fletcher and Le'Veon Moss were 2 really good running backs. This is for sure the best running back I believe that they've faced since week 3 when they played Texas A&M.
Okay.
But Hollywood Smothers is a very grossly underrated player on this team. I mean, a lot of the attention goes to CJ Bailey and Terrell Anderson and Noah Rogers and Justin Jolly, the tight end. And I mean, we're talking about a running back that averages 6.9 yards a carry, and he's already carried the ball 100 times this season. It's not like he's averaging 6.9 yards a carry because he has like 3 80-yard touchdown runs and 24 total carries on the season. He has 32 missed tackles forced. And to put that into perspective, Jeremiah Love has 22 missed tackles forced. Now, not a shot at Jeremiah Love. This is just to say that Hollywood Smothers is a hard running back to bring down. And he's going to be a tough task for this Notre Dame defense.
And I think one of the questions is, for NC State is, are they going to be able to feed him the ball 17 to 20 times? Like, because if Notre Dame is playing with the lead, then that's going to limit, that itself will help limit the impact that Hollywood Smothers can make. Now, again, he can catch the ball coming out of the backfield, but if NC State has to play catch up, I think that's how you really limit him more than anything is Notre Dame's offense dictating the pace and making them have to change their game plan.
That's the biggest question mark. If Notre Dame's offense can do their part in making NC State one-dimensional, then I think you also do a good job of containing Hollywood Smothers.
Yes. I am Tenzin. I am the son of Aang, says no soft coverage. What do you think? Like, do you think we see, whether it's, do you think we see a lot of zone against this guy, against CJ Bailey?
Potentially. And it's not even the zone necessarily that I have a lot of issues with. It's just the passiveness in which they executed it.
Well, and it's kind of one and the same at this point, right? Because of the way that they've played it so far, there hasn't been really much in between.
And that's $1 million question, right, Sean? If I had the answer to that, I'd feel a lot more comfortable about how Saturday is going to go down.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
If they replicate the same philosophy they had, not same schematics, but the same philosophy that they had against Boise State, then I really like what this defense could do this weekend. But if they employ what they did first half against Purdue, all game against Texas A&M, CJ Bailey might put up some numbers.
Notre Dame and NC State Saturday, 3:30 at Notre Dame Stadium. You'll hear it here on Sports Radio WSBT and the Notre Dame Radio Network on the Odyssey app, AUDACY. Tony Simeone with the play-by-play. Notre Dame great Ryan Harris with the color commentary. Game day coverage on WSBT begins at 11 o'clock this Saturday morning, 11 o'clock Eastern time, and it'll run through 2:30. Live from the linebacker, Tim Ground, Jim Irizarry, Eric Hansen, Tyler Horker will all be there. Chris Zorich and Ian Book among the guests lined up to join him at the linebacker this Saturday. So stop by and see him from 11 to 2:30. And, of course, listen here on Sports Radio WSBT, Sunday 101.5, and the Sports Radio WSBT app. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll hear more from Marcus Freeman from his Zoom call earlier today. Some interesting thoughts, including the scout team quarterback who was playing CJ Bailey, who's been playing him this week for Notre Dame on the scout team. We'll talk about that and more next. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues, along with Trevor Trowbridge, Sean Stiers, rolling on through this 5 o'clock hour. Hearing a few comments from Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman. Outbound in the YouTube chat says, Trevor is running double duty. Hopefully you get overtime pay. He's actually doing triple duty today. He did show earlier today with Brian Driscoll at IrishBreakdown.com. He is here, of course, with me doing this show. And then when this show ends, he will be heading off to do his regular Thursday show, The Spread Option, on the CFB Nation YouTube channel. So you can check him out there along with Vince D'Addario as well, doing a little give us like the 15-second, like the elevator pitch. What is the spread option? Tell everybody.
Yeah, so we break down the biggest slates of, or really the slate of college football each week. We talk about the highlight games and talk about what lines we like the most. We talk about underdogs of the week. We give our locks of the week, and then we keep a running tally to see how we're doing. So it's a really fun show, and I'm excited. I get to do a show with Brian, Sean, and Vince today. So this is a good slate of Thursday for me, but we are going live 8 p.m. Eastern time.
I'm just chop liver here in the middle. Is that what that is? Like, you're excited you get to do Brian once, then Vince. I mean, all three of us, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, don't worry, man. You're in there.
By the way, you ran over there by about 8 seconds. I said 15. Come on.
I got to work on it, man. It's been a long day. My brain's.
You're in radio now. You're in radio. You got to know the timing. No, I'm
I
kidding.
do.
I'm kidding, of course. ND Forever 72 says, I'm rocking the new Leprechaun Toting the Rock. I got this shirt for my birthday from my daughter. So a brand new shirt here. So I had to wear it, especially considering the weather. It's long sleeve, Under Armour, and it was the perfect day to be wearing the long sleeve shirt today. So here it is.
Looks great.
So we were talking about C.J. Bailey, the NC State quarterback. Marcus Freeman talked today about who's been the scout team quarterback, who has replicated C.J. Bailey this week.
If you got some guys that can kind of try to emulate him throwing the ball, but, you know, with some of those athletic, really athletic quarterbacks, you know, we can use Scrap Richardson to do some running. We use him this week to emulate the Wildcat quarterback. But, you know, Blake has done a great job of being our scout team quarterback.
All right, so you kind of splitting that up. You have Blake Hebert doing the passing work, it sounds like, and Scrap Richardson replicating the running aspect, as Marcus Freeman said, the Wildcat quarterback stuff. What do you think?
I like that mix-up. I mean, we obviously know the kind of experience Scrap Richardson has as a quarterback from his days in high school as a running guy. And I think Blake Hebert, I mean, people don't know this, but Blake Hebert has one of the strongest arms in that quarterback room, man.
He does.
That dude can rip it. Absolutely rip it.
He does. That's exactly right. You know, we talked about the accuracy of C.J. Bailey, and I think that, you know, having Blake Hebert back there, you know, able to do that helps quite a bit. Irish for Life 99, when I was talking about it before, was asking if it was going to be Tyler Buckner. I don't think they've really used Tyler Buckner much for that this season. You know, I think that Tyler Buckner is essentially, because Gino Guidugli was asked about him in terms of holding for field goal, you know, for place kicking, field goals and extra points, and how he kind of splits his time being the quarterback. And basically what Gino Guidugli says was, well, he spends most of his time over there working with the special teams guys. I don't think that they're like anyone holding out any hope that you're going to see something significant from Tyler Buckner unless something very significant changes from this point on. I think you're going to be holding your breath for a while. You might be purple in the face before that happens.
I agree. I mean, Scrap is what, like 6'2", you know, Blake Hebert's 6'3". I mean, C.J. Bailey is 6'6". I don't know how much of a realistic look like 6'1" Tyler Buckner was going to give.
Very true. Very true. Like when you're talking about size, and obviously Scrap Richardson with a lot of athleticism. He has been the scout team guy already this season when Marcel Reed, you know, Texas A&M, as well as Talon Green. And he's a guy who played both quarterback and running back and defensive back in high school, great athlete in high school, and also a track state champion in the state of Georgia. So guy with some speed and can do a lot of different things for you. Here's a few more thoughts on Marcus Freeman. Just talked a little bit about sort of some of the scout team guys in general.
I know it's hard to just pick one or two people, the whole O-line, but, I really like what Cam has done. Cam Herron has done as a center, the way he works. Henry Garrett's done a great job. And, here's some other, like Matt, 33. Matt Jeffrey. He's a guy that spends half of the week on scout team and then half of the week on with the offense. But he's a difference maker, right? And you talk about guys that elevate the play of others. What he does on our scout team and the look he gives our defense has been unbelievable. Leo Schuyler does. And so there's a lot of guys defensively. Joe Reef, Chris Burgess has done a good job. Those young D-line, Davion Dixon, they really have done a good job on the scout team. D-line, Jadon Blair has really looked good. I'm naming a lot of guys, but the reason why I got away from scout team player of the week and really player of the week for our team is, I know I said this previously, is just, I'm continuing to promote team, right? Team glory, right? And it's hard to just justify choosing one person that represents the player of the game or the player of the week. And so, but I've been really pleased with our scout team.
I thought that was interesting. No more scout team player of the week. And I get what he's talking about in terms of team recognition and that kind of stuff. But like scout team guys, like everyone's seen Rudy, right? It's like, it's all behind the scenes for the most part. Like that's where their glory comes. So I always thought it was kind of cool that they did recognize a scout team player of the week, because 99% of those guys aren't going to have a chance to get out there on Saturday.
Here's my conspiracy theory with this one, Mr. Stiers.
Oh, I'm ready for this. All right.
I think that they started going away from scout team players of the week, specifically on defense, because then I think they would have started getting peppered with questions about why Jadon Blair has not seen the field yet.
Ooh, good one.
Because it's like, hey, if he's doing that against Notre Dame's first team offense, don't you think that, Jadon Blair or Davion Dixon or somebody like could see some time on Saturdays? Now, I have no proof of that. That is just me putting my tinfoil hat on and probably reading too much into things that shouldn't be read into. But that's my conspiracy theory of the day.
Oliver Stone would like a word with you, I think. He like Mr. Conspiracy Theory himself. I think that's a really good one, whether there's anything to it or not. I love it as a conspiracy theory, and I completely buy your line of thinking on that.
My brain's not completely mush yet. Not yet.
No. You've still got 2.5 hours to go. So
thanks.
maybe more, maybe 3 hours. I don't know. So momentum is something that came up early this week at Marcus Freeman's press conference. And Vince and I actually talked about that on yesterday's show. So it came up again today in Marcus Freeman's Zoom call in terms of what's on the players to kind of keep that momentum going. And here's what Freeman had to say about that.
I think momentum is real. Yeah, I think it helps you with confidence. But I think as you look back over a certain period of time, you say, okay, they had momentum. So you asked me about the off the field work. There's a certain amount of hours that we can practice. There's a certain amount of hours we can meet. How do we make sure that in those hours off the field that we're meeting, that the focus and the intentional focus is where it needs to be, that our meetings are as maximized in terms of how we're teaching. Our players are receptive and in the moment in those meetings. And then during the time that they have free time, what are they doing? Like, you have very little free time. I often remind them with the class requirements that you have, with the amount of sleep we want them to get. And so in that very limited free time, what are we choosing to do? And I always say your choices reflect, especially during that free time, what you value. And we have to continue to be intentional in that free time of doing something to help us improve. All right. That could be physically getting treatment. That can be what you're fueling your body with. That could be watching film. That could be meeting with your coaches. Those are the things I think that we have to continue to elevate and emphasize if we want to continue with this momentum that we're having.
All right. So that is not the most exciting answer that Marcus Freeman gave there, asked about momentum. What, again, it's come up a couple times this week, Trevor. What do you think about all this?
I think momentum is very real. I mean, you go back and you look at any sport, and momentum is extremely real. That was definitely an interesting take by Freeman, for sure. I think, but I'm not surprised by his answer because everything is very much geared towards like team first. What do you do in your free time? Basically, everything that you need to do is geared towards. So his take is basically like momentum isn't just this intangible thing. Like it's not just like out there that just gets, bestowed upon you on some random team. It's you take the necessary steps to gain the momentum.
It's essentially like preparation breeds success or preparation breeds luck. Like people talk about luck, but the more prepared you are, the more likely you are to have luck. It's like luck bounce your way. The ball bounce your way during games. The more you prepare for it, it's like when I was listening to it, it's kind of like the whole everyone's got a plan until they're punched in the mouth. And you can talk about momentum, and I do believe it's real, like you, but it still comes down, I think, to your preparation because, again, preparation creates the luck. If you prepare the right way, then everything essentially becomes muscle memory, and things are going to go your way more times than not, especially when you combine preparation with good coaching, good, talent level, the whole thing. So it's ultimately the preparation that you put in during the week that I think gets things shifted in the right direction. And I think, like if you boil it down, that's essentially, what all that he was saying kind of comes down to.
Oh, agreed completely. Preparation puts you in a position to win. Couldn't agree more.
Let's take our final timeout of this hour. We've got a couple of comments from Marcus Freeman. I'll have to decide which direction we're going to go when we come back. I might go, well, I'll have to keep you in suspense. So we'll decide which way we're going to go after we return. But we do have more comments from Marcus Freeman. That's coming up next. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding down hour number 1 of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com with Trevor Trowbridge. I'm Sean Steyers. Bobby Hensley's going to be joining us in the second hour for some rapid fire. Hopefully some good topics in rapid fire coming up here today. There was Tommy Guns was asking about my wife, and I told the story about my wife earlier this week. Like Vince, she had an emergency appendectomy. It was the day of Jesse's wedding last Saturday, and what we didn't know at the time, hers ended up from like just the appendectomy aspect of it, ended up being a much different level of severity than we thought. It turned, her appendix actually ruptured before they took it out. It was gangrene, we found out before they took it out. So they had to try to, irrigate and get all this messy junk out of, her insides. And so while she was able to get out of the hospital in time to go to Jesse's wedding Saturday night, she had to go back to the hospital earlier this week because she was still not feeling well and has been on some IV antibiotics and fluids and all that different kind of stuff. She was severely dehydrated, and so she's been in there this week, but is expecting to be coming home tomorrow. Hit a good marker today, so it's looking like a return home tomorrow. Fortunately, she is. I'm gonna have to start calling her Nails, because tough as nails the way she's grinded out this last week. So. Looking forward to her being able to come home. But appreciate you asking there, Tommy. And Trevor was asking the other day, and some other people have been asking about her as well. So fingers crossed, everything's looking good. We'll be back. But when you hear gangrene and appendix, that is when she said that, it was like, hold it, you had gangrene in your body? Never heard that one before. I don't know about you.
No, I haven't either, but I'm glad to hear that she's on the mend. Shout out to Nails. That nickname is sticking.
That's right, baby. That's right. All right, let's talk a little bit more Notre Dame football. I wanted to make sure that we get this one in before we wind down this hour. The NCAA has officially approved a single transfer portal window for January. They just finalized it this week. It eliminates the spring transfer portal. So here's Marcus Freeman today talking about that.
Yeah, I was a proponent of getting that transfer portal window to one window. I wasn't overly opinionated on when that window was. I know the Big Ten supported the post-spring window, and the SEC was really pushing the winter window. I saw the pros and cons of both, but I was a huge proponent of getting it to just one window.
All right, so they got it down to the one window. It's going to be January 2nd through the 15th. What, like, are you good with this? Are you like Marcus Freeman? Like, it just needed to be one, regardless of when it was going to be? What do you think, Trevor?
I have mixed emotions about it. From a coach's standpoint, I totally understand why they want just one portal, especially with, the only one being the winter portal, because then you can go into the spring, you have your roster is set, and players do still have the option to enter the transfer. Like, you still can transfer, but now, like, you have to sit out a year and all this other stuff. But I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think they should have limited the amount of times in 1 year you can go into the portal, not take away one portal entirely, because here's the negative side to it. And I'll use a Notre Dame player as an example. Steve Angeli came back to Notre Dame for this spring to put himself in the middle of a quarterback battle that he was made aware of, that going into the spring, he was well in contention to be the starting quarterback at Notre Dame.
Right.
He didn't win the battle. He had the opportunity to transfer and then immediately started Syracuse. Eliminating the spring portal puts players like Steve Angeli in a position where they can still transfer, but they'll have to sit out. And I don't love that. Now, the counter argument to that is, well, he still could transfer. He just couldn't play right away. So, and Steve isn't, he's kind of one in a few players that kind of affects. I think you should have kept both windows, but you should have limited the amount of times a player can transfer.
Yeah. And I understand why coaches want to limit it and make it one. And I understand why they want to do it when they do it, because honestly, this window, which the SEC was more in support of. The Big Ten was more behind the spring portal for, whatever reasons. But, this is what, this gives coaches more control, quite honestly, by putting it here, because then, as you said, you can still transfer at the end of spring. But if you do, theoretically, you're going to have to sit out because, as USMA 87 says, didn't the courts rule that players could enter the portal whenever they want? That is still, you can say that they have to sit out, but where we are right now, it just feels like, is anything going to stick? Is anything that the NCAA tries to impose going to stick? It feels like you could still see some guys hit the transfer portal at the end of spring and go play someplace else.
Yeah, again, unfortunately, this is just going to be like another one of those lawsuits waiting to happen.
Yeah.
They're going to get some disgruntled player that, thinks he was done wrong, and he's going to sue the NCAA, and then they're going to grant him. It's like, okay, well, you can play right away.
See, and I felt like, and again, this is just me. I'm not a coach, and I understand why the coaches want it this way.
Yeah.
Doing it this way also, you've got a January window. It gets the players on campus so they can practice with their new teams in the spring. Well, how important is that really? Because, look at Will Pauling as an example. Yeah. Malachi Fields as an example. Did they really need to be here in the spring? Again, it feels like more control by the coaches to me. End of spring makes more sense to me because you can go through the spring, go through whatever position battle you have, whether it's quarterback, offensive line, defensive line, whatever the position happens to be, you can go through the position battle in the spring. And if you're not where you want to be, you hit the portal then. But again, the coaches probably don't like it because then you would have probably twice as many guys hitting the portal at the end of spring compared to January. And again, they want to control it as much as possible. But spring makes more sense to me.
No, I think that logic makes sense. I get where you're coming from. At the end of the day, they needed to do something to try to regulate the transfer portal. Because when we were doing the Purdue breakdown, they had somebody that was at one school in 22, different school in 23, a different school last season, and then now they're at their Purdue. And
yeah,
I think each student athlete should be limited to the amount of times they can enter the portal over the course of their career and specific for 1 year. That's how I look at it.
Right. I completely agree with that. But again, that's why it also for that reason, if you tried to limit it, it feels like the courts could just overturn any edict that the NCAA tries to create. And that's why I think that ultimately guys are still probably going to hit the portal in the spring, and some of them are going to be playing the following fall. So
agreed.
It's going to be really, really interesting to watch this thing as it goes.
Always is.
I know. The calendar has changed quite a bit just in the last couple of years. And I think it makes a lot of sense to get it out of December because you have coaching changes going on in December. You obviously have the playoffs going on in December, and you've got the early signing period in December, which has essentially become, the main signing period now, that December signing period. So it made sense to get it out, but you're still trying to cram a lot of things into a short amount of time. So I don't know. Be really curious to see how long this lasts and what kind of extra chaos it ends up creating.
Yeah, there's got to be a clause in there too for teams that make the national championship or make a deep run in the postseason, right?
There still is. There will still be that, just like there was last year. Guys who are still playing at that point aren't going to have to get in by then, but
or you could pull a Bo Prabula and just transfer in the middle of a playoff run.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He's Trevor Trowbridge. I'm Sean Stiers. Bobby Hensley joins us in hour number 2. We've got rapid fire coming up with a slew of topics that is on the way in the 6 o'clock hour. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Hour 2 of the show, and that can mean only one thing. First, I have to put my face up on this YouTube screen. There it is. And it's not just my face. It's 1, 2, 3 faces. Sean Stiers, Trevor Trowbridge, and Bobby Hensley. Bobby sporting a little Blue Jays love today. I know you're not actually fully on that bandwagon, even though they did eliminate the Yankees. So that's something I think that we can all rejoice in. The Yankees lose. Did you see that, Vladimir Guerrero Jr.?
Yeah,
Yankees lose.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I just an anti-Yankee fan, so it's kind of nice to celebrate the Blue Jays moving on past them and having a little more baseball and a little less in the Bronx.
Pull that microphone a little closer to your mouth if you would.
You actually want to hear my words today.
Well,
okay.
You were off just a little bit. That's good. That's good right there. But
Well,
yeah.
No, yeah, it's just nice there's not any more baseball in the Bronx, and it's crazy how long they really have gone without a World Series. But now we don't have to worry about it for another year.
Tommy is not that excited about you, Bobby.
Most people aren't usually.
We actually had someone yesterday asking if you were going to be back. So you do have a fan. So
Well, that doesn't mean it was a fan. They might just be like, oh, so what day can I skip watching? Or listening, either way.
By the way, Irish Eyes, I put this in there, asks how Vince is doing. Vince is doing very well from everything that I've heard. And again, he will be with Trevor Trowbridge later tonight on the CFB Nation YouTube channel doing the Spread Option, a little sports wagering show that they've got going on there. Okay, rapid fire. Topics, scale of 1 to 10. What's your confidence that Notre Dame will be ranked in the top 10 again this season?
Ooh, 5. I'm about halfway. College football so far has shown this season that college football will college football, but I'm looking at some of these teams ahead, like it's going to be pretty tough. You know, I don't know if Ohio State falls out of the top 10. Really, I think I'd be willing to bet that the top 5 is probably pretty safe. Maybe Oklahoma without John Mateer if Indiana drops a few big ones. I don't know, man. That's going to be tough.
You got to think they're going to win the rest of their games. So at the end of the year, they're going to be up there. I think if you make the playoffs, I think they'll be a top 10 team. So I'll give it an 8.5. But there's a lot of work. It just seemed like there's some parity at the top. So if the few teams knock each other off at the wrong time, because it's better to lose early than to lose late. So hopefully they just get enough wins going and they can string them along and look good doing it. And then they'll be a top 10 team. But I don't think they're going to get above 9 or so. Like you said, the top 5 is safe.
Top 10 is the question.
Right.
They don't have to get above 9. I mean, if you're back in the top 10, you're sitting pretty. And we're talking about in roughly a month or so, we're going to see the first college football playoff rankings come out. What's going to be interesting there is the playoff is using the new, strength of schedule is more factored into that this year. And as we all know, if Miami and Texas A&M keep winning, even though Notre Dame lost both of those games, you're still talking about 2 games by a grand total of 4 points. So if Notre Dame keeps winning and those 2 teams keep winning, I think it's going to have a pretty good ripple effect for Notre Dame. Because when you look at where Notre Dame is right now, they're already all the way back up to number 16 just in the stretch of a couple of weeks, because you've had some teams who haven't played nearly as good a competition, like Iowa State lost, Arizona State lost a couple of weeks ago. Teams like Georgia Tech and Missouri kind of complicate things right now. But when I look into this, 8 is Alabama right now. 7 is Indiana right now. And we'll talk more about them in a little bit. Oklahoma's sitting pretty at number 6, but how are they going to do with no John Mateer? I think that the health of his hand is going to determine just how long Oklahoma is even going to be a top 10 team. And obviously they've got Red River coming up this weekend. So we're going to find out potentially pretty quickly. So, we're only sitting for most teams 5 games into the season right now. So there is still more than half of a season to go. Basically, around 60-65% of a season to go. And so even though it looks a little bit daunting right now, maybe I give this I give us a little bit better odds than you guys. I put it at a 6, like pushing a 7. Obviously, it's all going to come down to next week. They beat USC next week. If they beat USC next week, I think that they are going to ultimately, not next week, but they will be a top 10 team by like mid-November because other dominoes will fall in front of them because it always happens. Not all of these teams in front of them are going to be able to keep winning because they're going to play each other, in many cases.
Well, that's the positive about Notre Dame not being in a conference. A lot of those teams are tied to each other because they have upcoming matchups, whereas Notre Dame doesn't have to worry about that. They just have to wait for others dominoes to fall and lose. The problem might be their 2 losses. Those teams have to lose 2 games to get behind Notre Dame. So those would probably be teams that are going to stay above them. Plus, you'll have a couple extra
but those
SEC
are both
schools.
top 5 teams right now. So, like, to me, I'm not as worried about the teams in the top 5. It's really teams 6 through, really 6 through 15 ahead of Notre Dame where the movement's going to come. And I think there's going to be a lot of movement in that area personally.
Yeah, and then you got to wonder where they end up to end the year. And that's the whole discussion because you're assuming they win all the rest of their games as well.
That's the assumption. Yeah.
They're such on the fringe of being a top 10 team, and they've looked like one recently, even in their losses, those top 5 opponents. So I think that helps them too. It wasn't that they got boat race in any of those games. They were in them. They were close. They were good matchups. So one of them on the road in primetime the first game. So I think that they have a pretty good shot at making it into the top 10.
Trevor, a team that is ahead of Notre Dame right now by 1 spot is Michigan. Do you have a preference in Michigan USC this weekend?
Oh, absolutely USC.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
just the whole
Michigan,
you want USC to win as long as they're not playing Notre Dame to help Notre Dame kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame needs USC ranked back in the top 25 for when they square off on the 18th, and I think a win over a top 15 team does that for you. I love whenever Michigan loses. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate when USC loses either, but in pertains to 2 days from now, USC needs to beat Michigan.
Right. Every team that Notre Dame is going to play, you want them to win every single game except for the game they play against Notre Dame. I mean, the better the win, because at the end of the year, I mean, it wasn't the question, but you're talking about playoffs as well. They have to have some win against somebody that looks good. So if USC is still ranked, that's a great win, because if Notre Dame beats them, they're going to drop out again, but then they can get back in hopefully by the end of their Big Ten schedule. And then it'll look good for Notre Dame. They'll be top 10, and they'll be sitting pretty, as Sean would say.
Yeah, I mean, quality wins obviously help. But again, I think if Notre Dame dominates a good chunk of the rest of the schedule the way they've done against some of these teams, and the teams that beat them keep winning, I think that the rest is going to take care of itself. I think that will be taken into account, especially when you consider, like the playoff committee will look at a 3-point loss on the road to Miami, another ranked team to start the season, a Miami team that, by the way, there's now a growing sentiment, or at least a growing case for them being the number 1 team in the nation right now in terms of eye test. And when you look at the schedule that Miami has played compared to the schedule that Ohio State has played. So even though you lost that game, first time starting quarterback on the road to open the season, all those different things. And if Miami keeps taking care of business, that's quite frankly going to help Notre Dame as much as anything.
Well, here's a question for you guys, both Trevor and Sean. 1 to 10, what do you value the eye test that you say? What does the committee value as that, or the voters for the AP poll? Because that's kind of what we're looking at here. We know they should win. They should be favored in every game. How important is that eye test when it comes to the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think the eye test is extremely important. Unfortunately, I don't know how much the committee also values the eye test. Probably not as much as what I do. But yeah, I mean, Notre Dame has absolutely looked like a top 10 team. One of my fears is, on top of, obviously you need the chaos to continue to be chaotic.
Right.
But one of my fears is I hope the committee doesn't look at the rest of Notre Dame's schedule and say, but who have they beaten? Good. You got to beat USC. NC State is 4-2, but I mean, you look at this. I mean, ideally, Pitt gets an upset this weekend on the road against Florida State. That would help out Notre Dame's kind of strength of schedule. But then, I mean, Boston College is 1-4. They're probably going to 1-5 after this weekend. Nobody, unfortunately, I disagree with it. Nobody ever looks at Navy like a quality win. I mean, Navy was undefeated and ranked when Notre Dame beat them 51-14 last year, and the only win they were still talking about was the Texas A&M game, and Texas A&M finished the season with 5 losses. So it's just, I'm very interested to see how the committee values that.
Yeah. ND Forever 72 says Miami was still a loss. Yes, it was still a loss, but the committee will still consider it, especially the higher ranked Miami is. That is still better for Notre Dame. Of course, it's still a loss, but it will still factor in Notre Dame's favor, because if Notre Dame does win out, we're still talking about if they do win out, the fact that one of your 2 losses was by 3 points to open the season on the road to potentially the number 1 or number 2 team in the nation, whatever they are, that still favors Notre Dame.
I mean, we're talking about a playoff committee that Ohio State hosted last year. They lost in the last week of the regular season by 3 points to a 6-5 football team. I mean,
part of that was because of the convoluted way that they were doing the seeding a year ago too. That'll all change this year.
Oh, sure. I don't know if Ohio State would have hosted with the new way that they do seeding, but they still made it. You know, I mean, we talk about timing of the loss and recency bias. I mean, like I said, Ohio State lost at home to a 6-5 football team by 3 points, and they still were able to get into the playoffs. So I understand where you're coming from. A loss is still a loss, but on the road, first-time starter, and it's to the now number 2 ranked team in the country. That's
right. I agree with what you're saying with that. Ohio State lost last year, which is intriguing to me, is that got them out of the Big Ten conference championship game. So then anyone that says, well, Notre Dame needs to play in a conference championship game, that should shoot a hole in that theory right there, because Ohio State got to skip it, have an extra week off, still got to host, and then ended up making a championship run.
I mean, we all know that the rest of the schedule, there's not teeth there for Notre Dame, but all Notre Dame can do is control the way they play. And if they win games in the fashion that they won against Arkansas and Boise State, they're going to be in really good shape. And because then again, you win games like that, you don't have any, crazy scares along the way. Even if USC is a shootout, you can still write that off as it's a rivalry game. Again, as good as you were last year, you had to win a shootout at the end against USC. It's just all these things are going to work in Notre Dame's favor, as because again, the strength of schedule thing, like as of right now, and this will change at some point over the course of the year, but as of right now, Notre Dame is still the only team that is ranked that has even 2 games against top 10 teams. Take the losses out of the question. No one else has even played 2 top 10 teams. So like when we're talking about strength of schedule right now, that heavily weighs in Notre Dame's favor. And again, as long as A&M and Miami, like even if they have like 1 loss between them or 1 loss each and they stay in the top 10, that is still going to weigh very heavily in Notre Dame's strength of schedule argument at the end of the season, because very few teams have played that kind of schedule. So like you can throw out the whole not in a conference and all those different things. That's still going to weigh in Notre Dame's favor.
And you can see that already by the fact of where they're rated right now, because yes, they have 2 losses,
right,
but the way that they happened and who it was against, they're keeping them in the mix.
The only question is going to be
bury him if they wanted to, but
right.
They haven't.
The only question is going to be, how does the committee see things compared to how the AP and the coaches see things? I don't think it's going to be drastically different personally. I think maybe 2 spots different when the first playoff ranking comes out. Again, this is assuming Notre Dame takes care of business this week against NC State and next week against USC. To me, USC is, and I think to a lot of people, USC is, the whole season is going to come down to USC, what happens next week.
And then, I think almost at this point, every game's a must win, obviously. So just the fact that they're 16 right now and they have a shot to move up, because like you said, they might be 1 or 2 spots different in the first CFP playoff poll, but that's okay because there's still going to be more dominoes to fall. There's a lot of tough matchups at the end, a lot of rivalry games, conference games, injuries. Like you say, Notre Dame's just got to stay clean and look good, and I think they have a clear shot to be in the top 15, top 10 in the next month.
I mean, they're already 16 right now.
I mean.
So like top 15 seems like a dunk, assuming they win those games.
I'm trying to think in my head if they're going to be the top 2-loss team. And if they are, I don't think that keeps you out of the playoff.
I mean, as of right now, they are. And again,
saying.
as long as they keep winning, they will be the top 2 lost.
It's about the how. Because Notre Dame on paper should, especially once you get to the month of November, you should be able to beat all of these teams. Exactly. I would be shocked if Notre Dame doesn't go undefeated in the month.
It's just none of those games can look ugly.
Exactly.
Can look ugly. That's the thing.
You gotta boat race some teams.
Exactly. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Irish defensive end Boubacar Traore has been named the Defensive Comeback Player of the Month for the month of September.
Well deserved.
Yeah,
I guess you could say. I mean, his stat line is weird, man. I mean, he has 10 pressures on the season total, and it feels like there's more than that. But he has 10 pressures on the season, but 7 of them have resulted in hits or sacks on the quarterback. So he's an extremely effective player. And I mean, by the way that he's playing, even going back to their week 1 against Miami, you wouldn't have been able to tell that he missed most of last season with a knee injury. So he's looked great.
Yeah. Comeback player of the month, or that's cool, but it's awesome. Like John says, just hope that he can keep it up and he doesn't get worn down off of coming back from that knee injury. But I think it's pretty awesome. And you can see how disruptive he is. He's changing the game when he gets in the backfield all the time on those quarterback pressures. And even like you say, the hits and stuff, he's making a lot of disruptive plays.
It's fantastic. And to Trevor's point, it's like, it feels like probably he's had more, maybe because also like these last few weeks, it's really started to snowball for him. We're just seeing more and more production from him every week. And like, when you look at the fact that it's just now a little bit more than a year ago since that injury happened and he's able to do what he's doing, it's just fantastic for him, fantastic for Notre Dame. We kind of had that expectation, but what we didn't know was just how quickly it would all come together for a guy who tore his knee up the way he did. So fantastic to see him out there because he is just tearing it up right now, and they need to continue to see more of that against some of these opponents that they're going to see. He leads the Irish, Traore does, with 3.5 sacks through 5 games. Over under 10.5 sacks for Traore after 12 games this season.
Ooh, I'm gonna take the over. I think that he's gearing up to string together some pretty impressive performances. And again, we just got done talking about how lackluster Notre Dame's November schedule is. Now the caveat's going to be basically take one of those games out because I don't know how many sacks you're recording.
You do have Navy. Exactly. Yeah.
But I think that he's going to turn it on. My prediction actually earlier in the Irish Breakdown shows, I think he's going to have a heck of a week this week. Ooh. So those numbers could start to ramp up starting on Saturday.
All right.
The only reason I'm going to say under then is
because you're pessimistic. So,
no,
but
because he's going to look so good that like you say, you can kind of wipe out the Navy game. How many of those games are going to be, as you said, boat races, and he might not be playing at the end? I guess that would mean they'd be passing more if they're down. But then how many, like maybe he doesn't have to be in as much to the end of the game. So maybe he's missing some fourth quarters. And that's the only reason why, because right now his momentum, if he has a few big games, he's already going to be close to that number.
I mean, you look, he's got 7 games left. And okay, if you take out the Navy game because of the fact that you're going to have fewer sacks, even though like Notre Dame, I think managed three sacks or so against Navy last year because of the fact that they threw a little bit more, and they do still throw a little bit more. So there will still be opportunities. But my point is you've got 7 games left. He's sitting on 3.5 right now. So, I mean, you only need to average 1 a game for the rest of the season. And it feels to me like, with going back to what we were talking about before, you had much better offensive lines that he had to face against Miami and Texas A&M. So when you look at what he's done the last 3 games, and he's going to see comparable, if not worse, tackles that he's going to be, in offensive lines and protections that he's going to be going up against these next 7 games, I've got to go over on him as well. I think he's going to go over, maybe even by a couple by the time it's all said and done. You were about to say something, Trevor?
Yeah, I like that. I think the biggest thing that's going to help out Traore is if somebody opposite of him also steps up and becomes a threat on the edge.
Right.
Because then he's going to put himself in a position like Isaiah Foskey did in 2022, where it was clear cut who their best edge rusher was. And there were some teams that were able to scheme Foskey out of it. And you got to hope that one of Junior Tuialamaka or Bryce Young or a Josh Burnham or a Jordan Botelho step up alongside Boubacar to take some of that burden off of him.
And they might be able to start stepping up when he's getting doubled and stuff, have more chances to get in there, which would help all the way around. And once you get to
helps that interior. Going. Yep, exactly. We'll take a break. When we come back, more rapid fire Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We continue rapid fire, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com with Trevor Trowbridge and Bobby Hensley. I'm Sean Stiers. Don't forget, kickoff 3:30 this Saturday when Notre Dame hosts NC State at Notre Dame Stadium. That means our game day coverage begins at 11 o'clock Saturday morning, 11 to 2:30 live at the Linebacker Tim, Jim, Eric, and Tyler will be there with the Game Day Show, the all new this year Game Day Show, new and expanded Game Day Show. Chris Zorich and Ian Book among the guests lined up for Saturday's show. So join them live out at the Linebacker here on Sports Radio WSBT Sunday 101.5 and the Sports Radio WSBT app. Okay, got all the business out of the way. Next question. Late question came in for the mailbag thread after the show yesterday. I think this will be fairly short and sweet. I'll throw it to Trevor. Thunderstruck 111 says, just a hypothetical. If Kenny Minchey transfers out, who takes the number 2 spot next season at quarterback, assuming CJ Carr is QB1?
Blake Hebert. He'll be the most tenured in the system. And like we talked about on Tuesday, Gino Guidugli's stock has risen enough for me that I trust whoever he's going to put in there as QB2.
There you go. That's it. That's all you had to say. Short and sweet. It'll be Blake Hebert. That's why he's here. He's a true freshman right now. By next season, you expect him to start getting those QB2 snaps if Kenny Minchey does indeed transfer out. I don't think any of us would be shocked if he does, considering the eligibility he has left, and he is behind CJ Carr right now. Tommy in the YouTube chat asks how you Indianans say the name of this town. Napanee is how you say it. So there you go.
Yeah. Rapid fire for sure. Napanee.
Yes, that's right.
Napanee.
So we talked about Bill Belichick earlier this week after the 2-3 start that he has as head coach at North Carolina. So last night on social media and pretty much everywhere, the UNC athletic department released dual statements from both Belichick and athletic director Bubba Cunningham. Here's the quote from Belichick. I'm fully committed to UNC football and the program we're building here, end quote. From Bubba Cunningham, quote, Coach Belichick has the full support of the department and athletics and university, end quote. Bobby, you're at least a pseudo North Carolina fan. We'll start with you. What do you think about all this?
I think that it's pretty sad when you have to announce that. I think it should just be known that the coach and the athletic department are both on the same page and do the 4 or 5 games into the first year of a coach. So it's pretty sad that they have to announce it. But the way everything's gone with them losing badly, with them not building a program, because he was going to run it like a professional business, the stuff with his girlfriend on the side. So they're not good on the field. They're not good off the field. There's drama and chaos everywhere, which is not what you expect when you get Bill Belichick. So it's really sad they have to announce it, but that means where there's smoke, there's fire. So there's got to be some stuff behind the scenes that's not going well on both sides. I think you can easily see it's not working out. It's not a good fit.
You know, when you have a friend that's going through a bad day and you ask them how they are and they're like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Still good. Still good.
Yeah, I'm good. That's what that reminds me of. It's kind of like you have to like convince people that things are good. That's my read on it.
Or like everybody knows you're having a bad day and you don't want them to know it. So you're just like, it's fine. Yeah, everything's okay. What are we having for dinner or something? You know,
The fact that you're 2-3 and you have to release statements like this, like you guys said, like that is not a good sign. And, you know, like it's really kind of shocking to me that, you know, I realize there's been a lot of smoke blowing around, but usually you just kind of, if you're in the position that they are, you just kind of turn around, go about your business and don't say anything. This just feels like that dreaded, you know, vote of confidence that you hear from a general manager or, you know, athletic director, obviously in this point. It just doesn't feel like it's going in the right direction. They're 2-3. All 3 of their losses are to Power 4 teams. And when you look at the rest of their schedule, Cal, Virginia, Syracuse, Stanford, Wake Forest, Duke, NC State. I mean, there's a chance for a couple of wins in there. You know, someone in the YouTube chat said, did anyone expect him to win 6 games this year? I think Bill Belichick thought he was going to win 6 games. And I think his general manager, Michael Lombardi, who he brought with him from the NFL when they walked in the door talking about, we're going to be the 33rd NFL team and, you know, all that kind of boasting. Probably would have been a little bit better off just to keep quiet and stay below the radar. I realize that's hard because you're Bill Belichick, but he literally made a career out of staying below the radar. And then, like you guys said, like you get this whole Jordan Hudson into the mix. You're canceling the Hulu series that they were going to do, the behind the scenes look and the whole thing. It's just like, where there's smoke, there's fire, and there are just big billowing smoke signals coming out of Chapel Hill right now.
And I disagree with you thinking that they're actually going to win any games. The only 2 wins they have are against Charlotte. That they won 20-3.
Exactly.
And then they beat Richmond.
Exactly.
I don't think they'll have any wins. And I'm interested at the end of this who ends up looking worse, Bubba Cunningham or the coach. Or
Well, Bubba Cunningham's not going to look bad because this was not Bubba Cunningham's decision to begin with. This was forced on Cunningham. He wanted to go a different direction, as people have talked about, like Tommy Reese was part of the mix, and Bubba Cunningham has Notre Dame ties. He was an assistant athletic director here for a long time before he moved off a while back. And, he had the Tulsa job, obviously, and Ball State and and all those, different jobs before he ended up out there in Chapel Hill. But yeah, I mean, he didn't want Bill Belichick. I said from the very beginning, I didn't think it was going to go well for Belichick because the college game is so different from the professional game. And, like we talked about earlier this week, Belichick is a transactional guy. Everything is about what can you do for me? That's the background, and a very cutthroat Belichick. And that is not what college athletics, college athletics cutthroat to an extent, but I'm talking about like interpersonal player relationships and those kind of things. And like some of the things that you hear where, like behind the scenes, it sounds like it's even worse than what we know publicly right now. If just looking at some of the reports that are out there.
That's what I think it was Colin Cowherd said, look at the way he's left everywhere he's left. It's always been like, even New England, he should have been able to stay as long as he wanted with what he had. And they couple bad years and they're like, we're done with him, brought in a new quarterback, started all over because he treats people poorly along the way. So I just think we're seeing an example of that where you can't get away with that. And he's just so out of touch. They fired Mac Brown to bring him in. They went from one of the oldest coaches in college football to one that's even older. So I guess I don't know what North Carolina's expectations were in any of this.
Andy Forever 72 says, but Skip Bayless thought he was going to be a game changer.
Oh, God.
Yeah, Bayless. Bravo, Penn State Sports Talk.
Hey.
Chiming in. First time in a while. We haven't seen him since Penn State was 3-0, but he says, I'm here standing strong. We're 3-2. Power to you, Penn State Sports Talk. We'll see how long that lasts. Everyone holding it together out there in Happy Valley right now.
Not so Happy Valley.
Yeah, no kidding.
In the valley.
Yeah.
All right, Chris Budden from ESPN has a unique take on college football coaches complaining about travel. Good time to chime in here, Penn State Sports Talk. Here's what Chris Budden had to say about that.
Get this off my chest. I'm going to run myself through a window, and I will run myself through a window if I hear one more Big Ten coach blame it on the freaking travel. I cannot. And it's not even about you accepting the money to be a part of this Super League. These are professional athletes now. Call them what they are. They fly on a charter. All of your top athletes sit on a lie flat plane at the very front, the same way every professional athlete does at the next level. I've never heard Matthew Stafford go over and play in Tampa and say, sorry, I lost today. I had to fly across the country. Baseball players at the next level do it every single day. Basketball players, football players. This is beyond the ability to me to comprehend anymore. You complaining about the travel. It was one thing before they got paid. Now you're getting paid more than 90% of the population. It is part of the job.
Chris Budden gripping it and ripping it. You guys buy or sell what she's saying?
I mean, I buy it. I mean, you can't. I hate the fact that it gets blamed on travel. You're also not going to get much sympathy from Notre Dame fans. Notre Dame travels across the country what feels like every single week. I mean, the end of last season, I watched them play a game in South Bend, and then I watched them play a game in New York City. And then the weekend after that, I watched them play a game in LA. If James Franklin or Lincoln Riley had to go through that, they would need to go through multiple levels of therapy to cope with the amount of travel that they just endured. So, yeah, I buy it.
Yeah, I buy as well. And like you said, a lot of other teams do that kind of traveling and they don't complain about it. So, and they don't even mean it like, oh, well, we should get an extra thought in the playoff committee because of our travel. You're traveling first class. It's not hard. Everything's taken care of. It's not like you're going through an airport and you're stressing. It's not like you're taking the train across the country like Notre Dame used to out to USC. They're not bussing. I don't understand why this travel or even the time zones are a problem, because you guys wanted to make these super conferences. You guys wanted a national conference. That's what you got. You're going to get more money from the conference, from the TV deals, from all that stuff. So I don't want to hear any excuses, especially that travel one. It's old and it's tired.
It really is. Like the point about the charter flights is, I think, the most important part of this whole thing that she was saying there. I don't even think it's as much about the fact that they're getting paid. It is a valid point, but I don't think it's much about that, because, like, all these teams are chartering everywhere. The buses pull up to the football facility. They're taken directly to the planes out on the tarmac. They get off somewhere along the way. They're getting catered meals, whether it's in the football facility or on the plane or the bus. Then they fly, they get to the next place. Again, the bus pulls up right on the tarmac, takes them directly to the hotel. They're sheltered from the outside world, just like professional athletes. It's far easier what they have to go through. I don't care where you're flying. The way they're doing it is so much easier than anything any common folk have to do. And, you're going through airports. They don't have to worry about the same security. Now, there are, even on chartered flights, they do set up, some security and stuff like that, and, wand you and those kind of things. But it's also only once a week. Like the other sports, they've got it far worse with multiple trips a week. Like Notre Dame women's basketball will take multiple trips this season, where they're going to go, they're going to leave on a Wednesday, play a game on a Thursday on the road, and then go directly from that Thursday game to the next place, stay on the road basically for 4.5, 5 days. Other sports have to do it as well. Baseball, softball, like the Northern baseball teams in college, like in February and March, they've got to fly multiple, like every weekend for multiple days. They've got to, stay on the road in either Florida, Texas, California, Arizona, wherever they can go, where there's warm weather, so they can play their games, because they obviously, when you're up here in South Bend and Michigan and Ohio and wherever you happen to be, you can't play home games in February and March. So like they've got it far worse. And in a lot of cases, they're also not taking charter flights. They're still, they're busing to airports. They're going through security. They're checking all these massive bags. The players actually have to check their bags themselves. They don't have a big equipment team who's doing all this stuff for them. So it's just, look, NFL teams do it every week. And as she said, all the other professional sports do it. And again, in football, it's once a week. So it's over. Like coaches just need to shut up about this. And the fact that James Franklin has brought it up 2 years in a row, it's just like, get over it. Your school was completely happy enough to sign on the dotted line to take that big TV check that you're going to get from the Big Ten. So cash your checks and shut up about it and go out and play like everybody else.
And before Maryland and Rutgers, the newest member of the Big Ten was Penn State, which took it from a Midwest regional team and made everybody have to go out to Pennsylvania to play them. And then this year so far, Penn State's had one away game against UCLA. Their remaining away games are Iowa, Ohio State, and Michigan State. So it's not like they're traveling that far. That's mostly their traditional conference games. So for him to say that about the one game that they had to travel so far, when they haven't had to travel at all this year.
Yeah, that's the thing. That was their first freaking road game.
Right.
They hadn't had to travel since the Orange Bowl last year against Notre Dame. That was their first road trip since then, and he's complaining about it.
Well, and think about it practically. You can't even be complaining about taking an airplane. Like this isn't like, the movies where football teams bus from one game to the next on a big
minor league.
Like hey man, USC, Lincoln Riley can complain all he wants about flying out and playing a game at Michigan State or wherever he played, Minnesota. Look, when you played Oregon in the Pac-12, I guarantee you're not driving from LA to Eugene. You're still taking a plane. We are now talking about the difference of like a couple hours added to the flights.
Yes.
Like that's the core of this. It's ridiculous.
Well, don't you think it's really unfair for Nevada? They had to go all the way out to Penn State. Maybe that was their excuse for losing that game.
All right, we'll take our final break and then come back with another topic or two, rapid fire in Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding it down, Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Glad you're with us here tonight. If you want to hear a little sports wagering talk, Trevor and Vince D'Addario will be over on the CFB Nation YouTube channel at 7 o'clock doing the spread option. They'll have it for you. I think I'm going to put more stock in what Trevor says than what Vince says. I don't know if he's ever actually won a sports wager.
Vince, to give him some credit, we do a segment called Dogs of the Week, and we pick an underdog of the week, and Vince is 5-1.
Really?
Picking his underdogs of the week. Yeah. So you'll have to
Maybe
Yeah.
I do need to listen because I actually have stunk it up when it comes to my personal wagers that I've had.
Well, hey, tune in tonight, man. 8 p.m. CFP Nation channel.
So you're saying the one thing Vince knows is losers?
I plead the fifth.
Joel Klatt says that he thinks Indiana can beat either Oregon or Penn State. Scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that the Hoosiers will actually win one of those two games?
One of the two?
One of the two.
7.
I'm going to
say, yeah, 7.
7. And you're just talking about the Penn State game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. For that same reason, I would probably give it a 9 because I think that they should be all right to beat Penn State. It's going to be a big game to IU, and by Penn State, they're going to be already maybe a little beat up and, not feeling so good about their season. Plus, one of those teams has to travel really far to get there. So
I know. What's Indiana going to do? They have to fly all the way to Oregon to play this football game. Do they have a chance?
No, not for that, but probably not.
I think I'm at a 6 on this. I'm not there are a lot of people who are really confident in the YouTube chat right now, a lot of 10s. And I think it's mostly because of Penn State. I'm not just going to write off Penn State because they have arguably the worst loss of the, the last 2 decades in college football.
4 decades.
4 decades. Is it the last 4? Wow.
Based on what the spread was?
Yep, Penn State is the first team ranked in the top 10 to lose to a team that is at least 0-4 winless in the last 40 years of college football.
Wow.
I don't mean to dump on Penn State, but I saw a stat that UCLA was the only college football team to not have a lead all season until that game.
Yeah.
Yep. UCLA also tied their season high in points scored about halfway through the first half.
Oof.
So
I do think that this year's IU team, just what we've seen so far, is probably better even than last year's team. They obviously pummeled Illinois, and I think that they kind of felt that the next week against Iowa. Do you think they've got a chance this week against Oregon?
A chance? Yeah. I don't have them
a
winning.
legitimate chance. Do you feel
a legitimate chance? I do.
Can this be a fourth quarter game? Are you confident this will at least be a fourth quarter game?
I think it can be. I'm holding out to see if they'll outright win, just because, look, last year we talked about it's almost the parity is insane. Last year they curb stomped Nebraska, and everybody's like, IU's legit. They beat Michigan 20-15, and having the same conversations. But I just don't know. A lot of parity this year.
I think it could be a fourth quarter game because Oregon and Penn State, that was such a close game. So if you're going to say how bad Penn State is, they put up a really good fight against Oregon. So I think that IU, of course, has a shot.
Right. The thing with these two games that he's talking about, they are both on the road. And I'm not even talking about distance of travel or any of that stuff. But it's honestly the next step for Indiana. Indiana hasn't shown that they can win a game against this level, quality competition, regardless of what you think about Penn State after losing that game. It's still a level of competition that Indiana hasn't shown that they can win under Kurt not just under Kurt Cignetti, but obviously historically, but specifically under Cignetti right now. Guys, enjoyed it as always. Trevor Trowbridge, Bobby Hensley. I'll talk to you guys again very soon. Vince will be in tomorrow. Brian Driscoll will be in tomorrow to preview the recruiting weekend for Notre Dame. We've got that more coming up. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We'll talk to you then.